Welcome to the deep dive. Tonight, we're taking a very specific kind of journey, a trip back to the holiday wish list of 1972.
It's a fascinating year, really. It sits right on that fault line in the history of childhood, just before the digital age changed everything.
Exactly. So we're going to be exploring that intersection of nostalgia, the tactile joy of early play, and what the world of toys looked like when imagination was, well, the primary power source.
Our mission here is to look at a range of sources, from museum toy inventories to, modern day discussions on Reddit about things like old paper catalogs.
So this isn't just a list of old toys.
Not at all. We're using the toys of 1972 to really examine how these analog items paved the way for the digital frenzy that came after. We want to understand not just what kids played with, but how they played.
Okay, let's unpack that. We have this fantastic list of the year's must-have items, and what strikes me is the theme of mechanical agency.
That's the perfect way to put it. Play was so reliant on cranks and triggers and direct physical manipulation. The toys didn't play for you.
They gave you the tools to create the drama yourself.
Yes. That idea of tools for imagination is just central to this era. When you look at the heavy hitters of 72, you see this emphasis on physical mechanics and incredible durability.
So where should we start?
Let's start with pure kinetic energy. The Matchbox Big MX and Power Activator.
I remember this one jumping out at me from the sources. This wasn't some gentle little wind-up car.
Oh, far from it. This was a chunky, loud, sort of monster vehicle, and it was activated by slamming down this heavy plastic trigger mechanism. It felt significant in your hand.
And the result was pretty dramatic.
It was. You'd load it up, hit that trigger, and the car would just shoot off with, frankly, alarming force. It was known for careening into baseboards, walls, and, well, according to a few anecdotes, the family pet.
And you contrast that kind of aggressive energy with something like the Fisher-Price Play family merry-go-round.
A timeless piece, truly. It represented a different kind of physical agency.
How so?
Well, it was crank-powered. You turn the crank, and those little iconic figures would spin around while a music box played the Skater's Waltz.
But the real story there is the construction, isn't it?
It is. Like most Fisher-Price items from that time, it was built with this thick, robust plastic. It was designed to survive, well, everything.
They were designed for inheritance, not for obsolescence.
Yeah.
You still find them in toy bins today.
Exactly. And that durability says so much about what people expected back then.
So if we move from simple motion to, well, high-tech missions, for 1972 at least, there was the G.I. Joe Mobile Support Unit.
This was serious business for a child. It was Mattel's way of saying your action figure isn't just an action figure anymore. He's a logistics manager.
It was a whole playset on wheels.
Complete base unit. It had an all-terrain vehicle, communications equipment, tiny little tools, a detachable trailer. The detail was all about empowering the child to manage a complex operation.
It put the child in charge of this whole big scenario.
Mm-hmm. And it gets really interesting when you see that mechanical focus applied to things like dolls and creative tools.
Right. Even the dolls needed some kind of basic tech to compete in 1972.
They certainly did. They raised the stakes for emotional interaction, or at least the appearance of it. Mattel introduced the tearful baby tender love doll.
The earlier versions just drank and wedded, but this one
cried real tears. Big, prominent tears.
And the only way to stop the crying was to physically turn her head, which made her smile. It seems less like emotional complexity and more like a very specific gimmick.
It was absolutely a gimmick, but a powerful one. It gave the child a simple, repeatable physical action to control the doll's emotional state. It was pure cause and effect.
Cry means turn head. Turn head means smile.
And the physical mechanism created the feeling of nurture. It was a stark contrast to the style icon of the year, live-action Barbie.
She was the epitome of 70s groovy.
Precisely. The older dolls were quite stiff, very static. But live-action Barbie and Ken and Christy, they came with bendable limbs and a built-in stand.
They were designed for movement.
For twisting, for twirling. The sources really emphasize that this allowed kids to connect the doll's movement with the culture of dance at the time. The movement was the story.
And on the creative front, You have the enduring giants, Lego, for example.
Lego revamped its logo and its product line that year to broaden its appeal, but the fundamental fun was, well, it was still just dumping all those chunky pieces onto the carpet and building something real.
And then there was the pure sensory joy of the Play-Doh Fun Factory.
An essential tool. Half creativity apparatus, half pasta press. You load the Play-Doh, choose a shape, and crank that big handle.
To extrude those squishy strings and stars.
It just appeals to that fundamental desire to transform raw material into a recognizable shape. It's so satisfying.
So if Play-Doh was for the hands, other toys in 1972 were trying to transform the whole environment.
You see that very clearly with the evolution of the Viewmaster. They introduced the Viewmaster Theater.
So it wasn't just the little personal viewer you held up to your eyes anymore.
No, this was a projector. It cast the reels onto the wall, turning a child's bedroom into a private little cinema. It took a solo experience and made it collaborative.
And what about the items that taught dexterity or learning?
The Spirograph was still intensely popular. It got new gears and pens, and they introduced the simpler Spirito for younger kids to make those mesmerizing patterns.
And finally, a real educational cornerstone, the Little Learner's Clock Talk.
A very sturdy, wind-up, bright red-faced toy. And it would cheerfully announce the hour. This was just a crucial, simple tool to help kids understand clock hands. A skill that was, right on the verge of being made obsolete by the digital clock.
It really underscores that 1972 was the tail end of that kind of low-tech ingenuity.
It was.
So that inventory of crank-powered durable wonder, it sets the stage for a really crucial question. How did kids actually express the desire for these things?
Right. We're moving from the toy itself to the ritual of wishing. And that's where the physical media comes in.
The power of the physical wish list, the Sears Wish Book, the Toys R Us catalog, it's so deeply tied to holiday memories.
It is. And while you'd think it's a thing of the past, the ritual continues. Companies like Target, Amazon, even Lego, they still send out physical catalogs.
And kids still go through them, circling items, putting stickers on them. Why do you think that persists in the age of the infinite scroll?
Well, the sources highlighted a really poignant example from a Reddit discussion. A parent mentioned that the physical catalog was an invaluable tool because their daughter is nonverbal.
That's fascinating.
She uses the catalog to communicate her interests. She'll bring the book over and physically put her parent's hand on a specific toy.
Wow. Digital browsing just can't replicate that kind of immediate tactile engagement.
It can't. It transforms a marketing tool into this crucial bridge for communication. It's the difference between seeing a picture on a screen and marking your territory on a piece of paper.
And that tactile engagement wasn't just valuable for the child, was it? It was also valuable for the retailers trying to track desire.
Exactly. The sources get into the long history of consumer data tracking. Most people think of the story about Target predicting a teenager's pregnancy as a modern digital thing.
But that kind of predictive analysis has been around for decades.
That's right. The story was that their algorithms noticed correlations in purchases, vitamins, unscented lotions, and could predict a pregnancy. But the key thing to understand is that the motivation to track those deeply personal purchasing patterns, especially for high-value items like diapers, was in place long before the internet.
The physical catalogs were part of those early data points.
They informed that early understanding of consumer intent.
So we have this moment in 1972. It's filled with these sturdy physical toys and this intense ritual of the physical catalog. And it really feels like a quiet transitional moment before the real consumer frenzy began.
The Strong National Museum of Play data shows this trajectory perfectly. They picked Uno as the buzziest toy of 1972.
A simple card game, zero electronics.
And it followed things like Astronaut Snoopy in 69, the Nerf Ball in 70, and Weebles in 71. Uno really marks the quiet, low-tech end of that specific era.
But that quiet ingenuity was about to be, well, obliterated by the digital crack that started in the late 70s.
Precisely. The Atari 2600. The home video game revolution hits in 1979. And its real cultural impact was how it changed the physical space of the house.
Suddenly, the television was the center of everything.
Yes, it became the focus of this intense, often solitary play. It resulted in thousands of fights over who got to play Pong. It really introduced screen time to the family in a very disruptive way.
Then the 1980s became this fascinating tug-of-war between physical challenge and manufactured character crazes.
It did. You had the global phenomenon of the Rubik's Cube in 1881, which demanded this deep spatial reasoning. And right next to that, you had these massive doll crazes.
And Cabbage Patch Kids.
Cabbage Patch Kids in 1983 caused literal riots. It was the most successful new doll introduction in history, all based on this idea of adoption and identity. At the same time, Mattel was aggressively marketing Masters of the Universe to boys.
The level of consumer demand, fueled by media, just exploded.
And it climaxed in the mid-90s with manufactured scarcity. By 1996, the hype cycle peaked with Tickle Me Elmo.
The demand for that $29 toy was so intense that scalpers were using the burgeoning internet to resell it for up to $1,500.
It showed that a toy's value was no longer just in its play pattern. It was in its media hype and its scarcity, a pattern we still see today.
And from there, the transition to pure digital integration was complete.
You can trace it perfectly, from digital pets like Tamagotchi in 97 to talking robots like Furby in 98, which you might remember caused some national security concerns.
Right, about its recording capabilities.
Then you jump to consoles like the Nintendo Wii in 2006, which brought physical movement back into it, and finally to educational tablets like the LeapPad Explorer in 2011.
And yet, if you look at the toy aisle today, those 1972 classics, Play-Doh, Spirograph, Lego, they persist, they thrive.
They do.
So what does that persistence of these physical manipulative tools tell us about the nature of play itself?
I think it tells us that the real value lies in agency and connection. The best toys, whether it's a G.I. Joe from 1972 or a modern programmable robot, empower the user to create a story, not just watch one unfold.
So it's less about the technology inside the toy.
And much more about the connections they allow us to make. Connections to stories, to our friends, or in the case of that enduring toy catalog, that's simple, profound connection between a parent and a child.
We've moved from the chunky, crank-powered toys of 1972 all the way to a reflection on how we still process our wishes through the tactile ritual of a paper catalog. It's a reminder that sometimes the simplest tools are the most effective.
The speed of that change is staggering. Just 7 years between Uno and the Atari. So consider this full circle we've traced. The digital revolution replaced nearly every aspect of play. So think about your own world. What analog experience are you holding on to today? A handwritten journal, a physical map that is right on the very brink of being completely replaced by AI or digital tools. What physical ritual do you still value, and what will we lose when it finally disappears?